Kevin Lindsey, as always, joins us here on Road Gang Radio. He just happens to be doing it on Friday, a freaky, feisty, flinty Friday, and he just happens to be doing it as well at a different time slot than normal. And by the way, I don't know what I was thinking. I knew this. I'm the one that scheduled this. I just wasn't ready for the miles back, which, by the way, wasn't there until it was. So, guys, welcome back to Road Gang Radio. Welcome to Maintenance Matters with, the head honcho over there of maintenance for TA Petro, TravelCenters of America. Mr. Kevin Lindsey, you must be over the moon. That game was a heart attack and a half, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm surprised I'm still breathing this morning. It was a good game. It was a good game, hard fought game on both sides. But
Do you want to hear
uh,
the
I,
funniest thing, by the way? LSU has to pay Lane Kiffin $500,000 now.
yeah, yeah, right. That's well, good.
And by the way, that number doubles if he makes the championship game. They will have to pay him $1 million for his team, his former team, Ole Miss, going to the championship game. If Ole Miss wins its next game, LSU has to pony up $500,000 more. And by the way, I don't know if you've heard this, but people who own Canes, which is really big, one of the biggest supporters of LSU football, have pretty much told the governor of the state of Louisiana that he botched the process so much that the state's going to have to come up with the money to pay Brian Kelly because they won't do it. Because they want to put their money in their current coach. It is like comeuppance all over the place. Kevin, I wanted to take a moment before we dug into any sort of topics or conversations to kind of talk about with our friends to help them understand what exactly it is you do other than having really kind of fun, stupid conversations with me because you indulge all my dumb questions. Can you kind of give people a sense of what your regular duties are, how you check in on people, how you
Oh,
keep up with stuff without giving away any secret sauce?
well, honestly, I wish I knew what the secret sauce was. I guess it's best described as I try to keep the chaos that is, almost 300 shops across the country. The chaos that is keeping them going. To ensure that we, do return every traveler to the road better than they came. That is our goal. you know, with what we do. So it's just a matter. There's a lot of little things that go on in the scenes behind this. Making sure all of our shops are have the proper equipment that it's working properly, which a lot of that relies on the individual managers at the different locations and things like that. So, uh, but ultimately, just help write some different guidelines and stuff that we go by, how we do business. Try to keep us straightforward with everything. And try to make sure that anything that's done at one of our locations, we can warranty that anywhere nationwide at any other of our locations. So, and sometimes that's tough in itself. And there's a lot involved with all that. I guess you could say the secret sauce part of that, but that's it's a lot of different things. A lot of data analytics. Keeping up with what is it we're seeing in our shops, what are the problems we're seeing. With with our customers. As far as different codes, things like that we see consistently on a regular basis. And then try to come up with a way to communicate that back to customers. Say, hey, we're seeing a lot of this. What do we need to do to help you? So.
Well, the other thing that's so interesting about me with data, and we deal with data over here with what I do, and the idea that we will look at segments. By the way, I love looking at the data on this segment because actually the numbers do spike to a large degree. One of the things that we do over here with data is we will often look at it and look at segments and say, where do the numbers drop off? But with us, what's interesting is that sometimes the numbers will drop off, but the kind of listeners we want for a particular segment is really, really good. So while the numbers might not be good for a particular segment in regards to like pure raw numbers, the numbers of the people that we're able to kind of target and pinpoint, we say, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. It's okay to have a lesser listenership right there because the people that are listening, we really want listening.
Yeah,
And
right. Yeah, I get that.
and the thing with data with you guys is I have a double question there. The first of which is what problems are you seeing on a regular basis across shops across the country? And like at the same time, you might say, well, we're not seeing this problem a lot except for this particular region, right? So it might be one of those situations where it's like, yeah, that's not the biggest number, but that is a massive number in this particular area. What is going on? Or that makes sense from a number standpoint. Am I making
Well,
sense, or am I getting in the
no,
weeds here?
no, you're making sense. You're making sense. And to be quite honest, we dug into some data, back a few years ago, and it was something that I already knew, but just trying to prove it with data. What we were looking at was some of our connection data, different trucks, as they come in our shops and everything. But we have the same problem that every shop out there has across the country, whether it's a dealership, whether it's third party service provider like ourselves, whether it's simple mobile maintenance providers that actually do work on customers' lots all the time, which we do as well. But and it's been out there, and this is going to sound funny, but for 15 years, it's been the same issues. I mean, the biggest issue out there, and that is controlling after treatment to a point that it does not affect, that it does not have such a negative effect on downtime. It's just huge. It just amazes me that here we are, ever since the introduction of SCR, we saw this, but with the more stringent regulations that were put into place, with EPA 13 and then EPA 17 stuff, and then EPA 21 stuff, and now we're looking at some major stuff next year again. It looks like it's going to be upheld and everything. So who knows? It's we see a lot of those issues, and a lot of it is things, just because keeping a heavy duty truck regulated, a truck that's used, to make a living for many people, that one truck, helps provide for, more than just the driver, the technicians that upkeep it, the people that load the truck, all of this stuff, in our industry, it's all so intertwined. So when we throw something in there, it really does, I'm not going to say cause the ball to unravel, but it can there can be some fraying that goes on for sure. And it seems like that's the toughest thing to get our heads wrapped around is how to troubleshoot those processes, because you got to understand the regulations, honestly, and each engine OEM has software engineers that work on this stuff with EPA software engineers. So they all have their own little secret sauce that, well, if you do this, this is going to happen. But that stuff's not always published, and it's not public knowledge. Even the years I spent in the dealer network, there was a lot of that stuff you just didn't know. Only engineers, knew exactly what it was going to be caused by. So it takes a lot of troubleshooting, which takes more time, more research, more digging in, looking at more data on the truck itself. Well, look at these trends, look at these temperature trends. What's causing that? Because this is where we ended up, and it's because of this. So it's kind of it's a true NCIS kind of thing, troubleshooting some of these issues nowadays for sure.
What is it? We told you, we showed you, and you still don't believe us. I mean, that's one of those things too, where we've been telling you this stuff, guys. Then we went out and we looked at the data, and then we brought the data back to you, and we showed it to you, and you still seem to not understand that aftercare treatment is one of the crucial issues here. And by the way, changing your filters also works really well too. Just want to point this out to people.
Right? It really does. Because that's what it's all about, right? It's a proper air fuel ratio to achieve the most effective combustion that can in the chamber, and that's what the EPA is trying, because but when you do that, you create less emissions out the exhaust, and so anything that affects the air fuel ratio, we know in these causes that.
Yeah, and
quite honestly, filters are a big part of it.
Strategically, by the way, and I'm gonna have Dre give you a little listen here because you sound a little bit further away. It's nothing to do with you though, my friend. Strategically, I had another question, another follow-up question for you. So let's look at it this way. So you have different people providing maintenance all over the country, different regional accents, different approaches, people who have learned stuff a little bit different. How do you manage to keep the message the same among each one of your providers, if that makes sense? If you dig where I'm coming from, the idea is that you want to make sure that no matter where somebody goes in order to get maintenance, that they are in fact communicating that properly and in a consistent way, so that if I go from one Petro to another, I'm still getting the same message. Yeah, of course, there are going to be different accents and guys and gals with different kind of approaches to it, but how do you maintain, without it turning into kind of like pablum, how do you maintain the same message?
Well, quite honestly, it's tough, and I apologize, but my headphones died on me here for some reason. So if I sound differently,
you sound great now. You sound great. You figured it out. It's a guys. By the way, it's called Field Tap, and it's terrific. It makes Kevin sound like he's sitting right next to me, but it makes everything sound like it's right there as well too. So you follow what I'm asking?
I do. I kind of honestly, I missed just a little bit of it because I kind of lost audio for a second, but I got it right back. So, it's a tough balance, right? I mean, trying to,
Let me rephrase. Let me take another shot at it, Kevin. Let me take another shot at it. It's okay, by the way. The best part about live radio is you can make mistakes, and it all just sounds like it's all part of the organic flow of things.
Well, it is, right?
It is. So this is what it kind of comes down to. So what you have is you have 300 locations, which means you have well over 300 maintenance providers. It's important that each one of them be able to communicate what they need to communicate in the way that they can best communicate it. That being said, you want to make sure that somebody who gets the message in one place, when they happen to roll to another place, is getting the same message. So it's a matter of how do you allow the people who are providing maintenance tips, maintenance service, how do you make sure they're all on the same page without having them lose their individuality, so that they can communicate in the best way they can while keeping the message the same?
Well, we do that, within our organization. We have what we call our technical support center, which is, a team of 5 ASE master technicians that we try to utilize them to keep that communication between our different sites. So we really push our sites. Hey, if something comes in, something's odd, something's don't seem right here, or if you have questions about this, call these guys. It's a 24/7 number that all of our sites can call, and we try to keep that communication to our sites consistent across all of them. That way, our customers are hearing the same thing, so.
That lands and that tracks. That's not, I mean, I got to tell you, the other good thing about that, too, I'm not sure if they take advantage of it as much as they would, although I'm sure you say they do, which makes me feel better, is the fact that when you have a central hub of communication, that kind of centralized place where people can go, it also means that the people who are giving that information can go back to that centralized hub and kind of get themselves on the same page, if not the same accent and rhythm of delivery, as it were. Because I got to tell you, the difference between talking to a mechanic from Ohio and talking to a mechanic from Picayune, Mississippi, is a matter of like people who speak the same absolute language and have no idea what the other person is saying. So you know how that can be, by the way.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, by the way, our good friend Trucker Boson says anybody who still doubts Indiana's strength after yesterday isn't paying attention, or they're delusional. I know that you watched that Mississippi game. Did you get a chance to watch any of what remains of the Alabama Crimson Tide make its way off the field? I have to tell you, I've never met so many Southerners rooting for a team from Indiana in my life.
I got to admit, I mean, sure, I'm an SEC guy, but, quite honestly, I didn't feel like Alabama belonged. I didn't, they never passed the eye test to me for this year. Just some of the games I watched them play and everything. And I watched Indiana a couple times, and I got to admit, Indiana's a great team. I mean, they're pretty solid from offense, defense, everything. So
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. As a matter of fact, I thought if anybody who had 3 losses who passed the eye test, it should have been Texas. And to tell you the
I'm
truth,
with you.
this would be a very different tournament if Texas and Notre Dame were
Ooh,
in it, because
ooh.
the one thing that both those teams can do now is they can run you over and they can get down in the trenches. And I will tell you this right now, it was a masterclass. People, this is really kind of cool too, because you come from the same group of people as our buddy Mr. Mustafa, as Homer Hogg, and all that, which was an amazing dream team to a large degree. I kept thinking about that with Kurt Signetti because he was on the same coaching staff, wait for
Yeah.
it, as Lane Kiffin and Dan Lanning. They were, and
Hmm.
Kirby Smart. There was all those guys were on the same Nick Saban 2016 coaching staff, dude. And that's what comes down to putting together a good team, not just on the field, but in the men and the women who assist you in kind of putting that team together. Okay, so that was kind of a really fun thing to kind of begin with as 2026 rolls in. One more quick question, and then we'll get to the issue of maintenance matters. So we know your expectations are for 2026. We're going to see the same things that we saw last year, 15 years, and you say it's all just kind of going back across the same landscape. Is there anything that you guys are going to be onboarding or anything you're going to be trying new coming up in 2026 that you're looking forward to? Any new implementations, or is it just going to be honing what you already do and making sure you do it well? No wrong answer there.
Well, honestly, we've had to kind of step back with the different issues we've had across our network over the last year. And to be honest, I'm looking at us kind of stepping back and really trying to sharpen our skills on what we already do. To be quite honest, and make sure we're doing it right, that we're doing it the best that we can. Which hopefully would be the best in the industry. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at 2026 for us. So.
Yeah, and by the way, that's really got a great approach for maintenance matters too. Is the fact that that's one of the things that as we were talking about all the changing your filters over and over again, no matter what system you were looking at. One of the things that it might behoove people as a new year kind of begins, in some ways that gets taken care of what we call getting ready for winter. So let's just kind of begin with 2026 and imagine that actually a number changing is a genuine fresh start. If a person was going to make a resolution at the top of the year, and we can work in whatever you wanted to talk about today into this, if a person was going to make a resolution for what they can do better with their truck, where would you have them begin in regards to both how they relate to their maintenance provider, but also how they provide their own maintenance as they get ready to tackle what should be a very interesting year in the transportation industry?
Well, I don't want to sound cliche here or like a broken record, but it's got to start with that DVIR, that daily inspection. Honestly, kind of like what I just said. Yeah, that's something that becomes a habit, right? Because let's face it, human nature is habits. We get into our own little ruts or our own little habits. We do this, we do this. This is a process that we use. I've done it this way for years and it's always worked. Well, guess what? Things change. and that's kind of what I'm kind of saying, that my approach, for us, hopefully, that, this coming year is, we've got to, even though we're doing the same things we've always done, we've just got to go back and focus and make sure we do it better. And I think that's something drivers can do as well, and start it with that simple, daily inspection. As you look at your truck, look at these things, really pay attention to things, because it's so much easier to get something repaired when you have the time to than to have that breakdown. Breakdowns have always been, unscheduled repairs are are a killer in the trucking industry. Always have been, because they put things behind schedule. So much freight is so much on time stuff anymore. Because it's like no one hauls a truly full load anymore. Consistently. It's like, well, you've got a half a load's got to go here, and and then another pallet or something that's got to go here on this, on the way, so, because that's kind of, the industry, the logistics of the industry has evolved over the years, to try to just keep up with not just demand, consumer demand, getting products out there, but the demand internally from the competition, right? From the different companies, the different bidding wars, on hauling freight. And, there's a lot to it, right? And I think something as simple as just simply making sure, hey, my truck is ready to go. My truck's ready to roll. I know this, let's go. Obviously things are going to always break,
You turned on the truck, things are going to break. I mean, we've discussed this. You turn the engine over, things are going to break. Atrophy is the only kind of unwritten sort of solid rule in the universe. Our knees give out eventually, so do the wheels. That's it.
Yeah. It's going to happen. You're going to be rolling down that big 4 lane, and all of a sudden, a truck moves out from in front of you, or you go to pull out, and there's an object in the road. Those things happen, and oh, well, I straddled it, it did move, but, it didn't hurt anything. And then, 10 miles later, all of a sudden you're losing air pressure. Oh God, what happened? Well, you run over something. Things are like that are always going to happen. Right. But, the things you can do to really, really help yourself is pay attention to the details, you get to know your truck, right? Get to know it almost like on a personal level, and I know a lot of owner operators out there really can relate to that, because that's their baby, right? And
well, yeah, let me tell you something right now, make you laugh. By the way, our good friend Scat Pack wrote, I have 2 old GMC Generals that he's building, and he's of course referring to General Lee's, but he of course is the exact kind of person that people. The other thing is too is that we've been talking a lot this morning about sitting around a diner and kind of talking with people, and I can't encourage people enough in the sense of community. If you see somebody in a shop that seems like they know what they're doing, talking to the maintenance people, and you see them on a regular basis, get to know them, because there's a lot of institutional knowledge out there that isn't being taken advantage of. And I bring up Scat Pack because anybody who's got the time and the dedication to get 2 old GMCs up and working is going to be a guy who actually probably has some really good tips for you in regards to how to do the maintenance there. Dean Croak likes to say, and by the way, former owner-operator, by the way, still got that beautiful truck of his. He always likes to say, when you're running your business, you should run it as if 2 months of your business are going to be down.
Yeah.
And of course, people think he means that you're just going to shut down for November and December. It's not what he means. What he means is you've got to kind of assume that 2 months are just gone. You're not going to be able to take advantage of them. It behooves people, I think, and I'd like your take on this, to say to themselves, hey, every 3 or 4 months, I'm going to take a couple of days in my scheduling and putting together my run as an owner-operator to make part of that schedule taking this in for maintenance, to have absolutely designated maintenance times, and to listen to your maintenance provider about when you should come in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, that to me, that would be, what everyone calls a best practice, right? Scheduled time, for maintenance and not only that, but, make sure, don't just rely on that maintenance provider for everything. And that's what I was really trying to say with the whole DVIR thing, that was daily inspections, get to know the truck yourself, even if you're a company driver, the company gave you that piece of equipment to drive for them, sure, but you know, keep your eye on it. That's one of the issues. I do see over the last several years, as a trend is a lot of times company driver, well, it's not my truck. That's a terrible, because you're the one driving.
Yeah, it's not your truck, but it is your life. I mean,
it is your life, right? It's your life. It's your job. It's your house for a lot of these drivers. For the most part, most of their time is spent in that truck rather than at home, right? And yeah, I get that, so get to know that, understand it, and take care of it.
By the way, our good friend Tom Bray says routine and scheduled maintenance gives the driver a good truck. Daily pre, en route, and post inspections. Keep it that way. That is very well said, and that's what we've been
absolutely.
What's what we've been kind of saying over the course of this, my friend. I hope you had a wonderful New Year. Oh, wait, you did. Your Rebels, your Rebels slash Bears
Pretty
won.
good day.
Yeah, it was a
pretty
damn good day. And by the way, it was nice that it happened in the Sugar Bowl as well too.
It was.
There's something
It was.
about that. I know people love the Rose Bowl, but as a kid growing up, I got to tell you, Penn State, Georgia, Pittsburgh, Georgia, Notre Dame, Alabama, Notre Dame, Georgia. I can go on. Alabama versus Miami. The number of great games at that institution is just endless, and people got one last night. Just fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. Happy New Year to you, my friend. We'll come back with a more normal segment of this in the future, but I thought we would do something fun today. I appreciate you, brother.
Hey, no problem. My pleasure.